never expected the moment I'd waited my whole life for to feel like a mistake. I remember standing behind the velvet curtain of the university hall, cap pinned to my hair, gown rustling around me, my heart pounding with the stubborn hope that, just this once, my family would show up. They always had an excuse before, always a reason to skip the events that mattered to me. But this time I kept telling myself, this time would be different. I kept checking my phone. 5 messages sent, none seen. My stomach twisted. The hall was filling with cheering families, people shouting names, waving banners, crying, hugging. All that warmth, and I felt cold. I whispered to myself, they're on the way. They have to be. When the ceremony began, I tried to ignore the empty row of seats where they should have been sitting. Every time someone's parents screamed with joy, something inside me cracked. And by the time they called my name, I felt like I was walking through fog. I forced a smile. Cameras flashed. The applause wasn't for me. It was for someone who wasn't even here. Afterward, I waited outside, clutching the diploma case against my chest. Grads reunited with families who brought flowers, balloons, gifts, and love. Hours passed. The sky shifted from gold to blue. My phone buzzed at last. A single message. We couldn't make it. Something came up. We'll talk later. No apology. No explanation. I stared at the words, and for the first time, I felt something heavier than disappointment. I felt done. I didn't know that this moment, the one they skipped, would become the reason they later demanded $20,000 from me. Money they claimed I owed them. And I had no idea that saying no would unravel every buried truth about who they really were. The night after graduation, I drove home with that aching mix of hurt and anger boiling inside me. But the moment I walked into the house, the atmosphere felt off. My mother sat stiffly on the sofa. My brother scrolled on his phone like nothing mattered. My father kept pacing like he was rehearsing a script. I waited for someone to acknowledge my degree. One word. One sentence. Anything. But silence stretched like a rope around my chest. So, my mother finally said, eyes glued to the TV, your uncle called. He needs help with something. I blinked. You're not going to ask how the ceremony went? She shrugged. We already know you graduated. Why repeat the same thing? That sentence pierced me deeper than I expected. I tried to breathe through it. Why didn't you come? You promised. We had important things to handle. My father cut in, waving his hand like brushing away a fly. You're making everything dramatic. My throat tightened. It was important to me. He stopped pacing, looked at me, and something cold flickered in his eyes. Speaking of important things, we need to talk about money. My pulse jumped. Money. My mom muted the TV, crossed her arms. You know we invested in you your whole life. School fees, clothes, food, everything. Now that you're about to start earning, it's time you repay the investment. Ich zerrte her, confused. Repay? What does that mean? My brother looked up with a smirk. It means 20 grand. That's what they decided. My heart nearly stopped. 20,000? For what? For raising you, my father said. You wouldn't have graduated without us. I felt the room tilt. You didn't even show up, I whispered. My mother's expression hardened. Don't start with emotional drama. We said we had something urgent. I looked at them, really looked. And for the first time, I wondered if I'd misunderstood my place in this family all along. And I didn't know. Refusing them would turn my entire life upside down. For days, they cornered me with that same rehearsed tone, reminding me how much they'd spent, hinting I was ungrateful if I didn't return the favor. They acted like raising me had been some kind of business contract, like love had come with a hidden invoice. I kept replaying graduation day in my mind, the empty chairs, the silence, the way they brushed it off. Each memory layered itself inside me like bricks, building something I wasn't used to recognizing, anger. Real anger. One night, after another round of pressuring me, I had enough. I'm not paying you $20,000, I said, voice steadier than I felt. The room went silent for a beat. Then my mother laughed under her breath, but it wasn't amusement. It was disbelief coated in bitterness. You think you're too good for us now? No, I said. I just think being raised by your parents isn't a debt. My father's jaw clenched. Everything we did for you. And this is how you repay us. You didn't come to my graduation, I said softly. You didn't support anything I ever worked for. My brother scoffed. You're being dramatic again. Something inside me snapped. You all always made me feel like a burden. And now you want me to pay for existing. My mother slammed her hand on the coffee table. If you walk out of this house without paying, don't come back. Her words echoed through me. But instead of breaking me, they clarified something. I didn't belong here. I never truly had. That night, lying in my room with the diploma case beside me, I made a decision, one that terrified me, one that felt like stepping into the dark without a flashlight. I would leave. But before I could, something happened that twisted everything. Something that revealed why they really missed my graduation. And why $20,000 wasn't just about raising me. It was about a secret they were desperate to hide. 2 days before I planned to move out, I overheard a late-night argument between my parents. Their voices leaked through the cracked hallway door, low, urgent, trembling in a way I'd never heard before. How long until he shows up? My mother whispered. He said by the end of the week. My father replied. We need the money before that. My mother's breath hitched. What if he comes here? What if she finds out? A cold shiver crawled down my spine. They were talking about me. I leaned closer. She'll start asking questions, my mom said. She already suspects something. That girl notices everything. We should have gotten the money on graduation day, my father muttered. That was the plan. Graduation day. My pulse thudded against my ribs. That was when we were supposed to meet him, my mother added. We had one chance and we lost it because she kept calling. We had to turn our phones off. If we didn't show up, he wouldn't trust us. My throat tightened. They didn't miss my graduation by accident. They deliberately skipped it, to meet someone for money. 20,000 won't even cover half, my father whispered. He's demanding the full 40. 40. My stomach dropped. And if we don't pay? My mother asked. He said he'd expose everything. I froze. Expose what? My father sighed, tension thick. We can't let her find out. Not now. My mother's voice cracked. She'll hate us. He exhaled roughly. She already does. A wave of emotion hit me, anger, confusion, betrayal, mixing into something sharp and breath-stealing. I backed away from the door, heart racing. There was no sleep that night, only a storm of questions tearing through me. What secret were they hiding? Who were they supposed to meet? What could possibly be worth $20,000? No 40, that had them lying, manipulating, and risking losing me completely. By morning, I knew one thing. I had to find out the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The next evening, while my family thought I was asleep, I snuck into the living room and opened my mother's purse. Guilt twisted through me, but the need for answers pushed stronger. Inside, I found a folded receipt, a hotel address, a date, my graduation day, and a name scrawled at the bottom. Eller. I whispered it under my breath. It meant nothing to me, but the next line slammed into me like an avalanche. Payment arrangement 40,000. Final warning. My chest tightened. I snapped a photo of the paper and slipped everything back exactly as it was. The next morning, I drove to that hotel. The man at the desk hesitated before giving me anything, but when I showed him the photo and said I needed to speak to the person who'd left the note, someone who'd threatened my parents, he stiffened. He checked out, the man whispered. But he left a message for them. For my parents? For whoever came asking. He slid a small sealed envelope toward me. My fingers trembled as I tore it open. Inside was a single sentence. Ask them why they hid your biological father. The world spun. Noise faded. I felt my knees weaken. Biological father? I whispered it again, barely able to breathe. My parents had lied about that? My entire identity, my whole life, built on a secret I didn't even know existed? Numbness spread through me. But underneath it, something else stirred. A memory. A fragment. A childhood moment that never made sense. My mother crying in the kitchen. My father yelling about breaking the agreement. I remember asking what was wrong. and being told it was none of my concern. I thought it was about money, but now it was clearer than ever. My existence had never been simple for them. I rushed back home, heart in my throat, ready to confront them. But nothing, none of it, could have prepared me for the truth they finally confessed. They were both in the living room when I walked in. My mother clutching a mug with shaking hands, my father staring at nothing. I dropped the envelope on the table. "Who is LR?" I asked. My father's face drained of color. My mother's mug slipped from her hands, shattering. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. "At the hotel you skipped my graduation for," I said, tears burning behind my eyes. "Just tell me the truth." Silence stretched, until my mother finally broke. "He's your father," she breathed. The words punched through me. "You mean the man who raised me?" "He's not your biological father," she said, voice trembling. "We never planned for you to find out." My heart thrashed in my chest. My father, the man who barely looked at me growing up, wouldn't even meet my eyes now. "Why would you hide something like that?" I whispered. My father stood up, bitterness twisting his expression. "Because you were a mistake." My breath caught. My mother grabbed his arm, but he yanked away. He continued, voice cracking with resentment. "Your mother had you before she met me. From a man who promised to disappear if he was paid. She agreed. I agreed to raise you. But he came back years later demanding more." My mother sobbed quietly. I felt like I'd fallen into ice water. "So the $40,000, I choked out. "To pay him off," my mother said. "To keep him away. To keep everything quiet. Their manipulation. Their coldness. The skipped graduation. The money they demanded from me. Everything was connected to a lie I never asked them to tell. And the worst part? They weren't trying to protect me. They were trying to protect themselves." After the truth came spilling out, the house felt like a graveyard, filled with ghosts, silence, and shattered illusions. Every corner I looked at felt like it belonged to a stranger's life. My father retreated to the backyard, lighting cigarette after cigarette. My mother sat on the sofa crying into her hands. And I stood there, feeling the ground beneath my feet shift into something unfamiliar. "You should have told me," I whispered. My mother lifted her tear-streaked face. "We were trying to keep the family together." "What family?" I asked, my voice breaking. "The one that skipped every important moment? The one that treats me like a debt instead of a daughter?" She winced, but I didn't stop. "You demanded $20,000 from me," I said, shaking. "Not to help the family. Not to fix anything. But to pay off a man who's been extorting you because of a lie you chose to tell." My father turned from the doorway, voice rough. "We did what we had to do." "No. Iwisparat. You did what was easiest for you." The room went still. "I'm done," I said. "I'm leaving." My mother reached for me, panic rising. "You can't go. He might come back. We need you. We need the money." I stepped back. There it was. The truth. Not love. Not family. Not protection. Need. Money. Fear. Not for me, but for themselves. "I'm not paying for your lies," I said softly. And for the first time in my life, I walked out of that house, not as their daughter, not as their obligation, but as someone reclaiming her own story. I didn't know what the future held, or whether I'd ever meet the man who shared my blood. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to keep living in someone else's shadow. It's been months since I walked away. Months since I stood in that storm of secrets, betrayal, and broken trust. I remember packing my things into a small apartment, sitting on the floor surrounded by silence, and feeling lost in a way I can't explain. But sometimes being lost is the first step to being free. I didn't contact my parents after that. They tried reaching out at first, calls, messages, guilt-filled paragraphs, but none of them were apologies. None of them were about love. Just reminders of money, fear, desperation. And then they stopped trying. Maybe they finally realized I wasn't coming back. I found a job, built a routine, and slowly, painfully, I rebuilt myself. Piece by piece, choice by choice. One afternoon, I got an email from a man named Liam Rivers. LR. My heart stuttered as I opened it. He wrote that he wasn't trying to ruin my life. He didn't want money anymore. He only wanted to meet me once, if I ever chose to. He said he regretted the deal he made with my parents. Regretted abandoning me before I was even born. I didn't reply. Not because I hated him, but because healing comes in waves. And I was still learning how to breathe through the old ones. Maybe one day I will meet him. Maybe one day I won't. The truth is, I no longer need answers to feel whole. My graduation didn't break me. Their betrayal didn't destroy me. Their lies didn't define me. What defined me was choosing myself when no one else did. And if there's one thing this entire storm taught me, it's this. Sometimes the family you're born into is your first story, but it doesn't have to be your last. You can walk away. You can start over. You can rewrite your life without asking for permission. And that is worth more than $20,000. More than 40. More than anything they ever held over me. I am mine now. Fully. Completely. Finally.